It's like I could feel this circulating energy going around the outside, like I was being protected. I could have fallen asleep there and nobody would have come anywhere near me. And there was nothing to see, you know, but everything to feel and everything to perceive in here. Sightings of these things were much more prolific, sort of from the later medieval period onwards, and then have died off over the 20th, the advent of the 20th century.
We don't see plants that are native to Britain being as popular in terms of ceremony, spiritual events, in comparison to plants that are from around the world.
Electricity arrives and we start to have these electromagnetic frequencies in the house. Something is interrupted in our own ability to perceive.
The pitch in your experience and perception of the space is slightly altered, right? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Starlit Stories podcast. I'm really excited to be back with Sam MacLaren. And what I mean by back is, Sam, you were the first person on the Starlit Stories podcast in terms of talking about ancestral spirituality from the Celtic world and the world of Pretani, Britain, Scotland, Ireland. Yeah, these lands where we're from. And it has been such a journey for both of us on our individual path since we first spoke. I think probably about 10 months ago now,
Yeah.
almost a year. Wow, it's been just like in terms of our own personal journey, we've both just evolved so much in what we want to talk about, what we're passionate about. But it's just deeper into our own individual cultural, spiritual identity. So for me, I'm Welsh, I'm from Cymru, Sam is from Scotland. Um, and the first conversation we had was talking about Pretani. If you didn't listen to the podcast, then one of the questions I'm going to ask Sam in a moment is just to briefly go over what Pretani is, why it's important to Sam in terms of understanding ourselves from a native spiritual place. And today we're going to be looking into and talking about, well, because Sam is from Scotland, um, and we didn't speak as much on Scotland last time as we'd have liked to. And Sam has just told me that you are deeper in your own ancestral lineage. You're being called, and I'm the same here in Wales, but this is a podcast where I'm interviewing Sam. So we're going to talk more about Scotland today. We're also going to talk about plant and nature spirits and why there is such a sort of it's just really like the plants and the spirits that we sort of hear of here in Britain and in the Western world when we look online and in books within the New Age world often aren't from here. So we're going to be talking about the popularization of non-native plants, how we're sort of neglecting our own plants and the spirits here, and yeah, looking at the our ancestral past in terms of animistic plant spirit connection and what we can do today and what Sam is doing today to yeah, rekindle that connection. So, hey Sam, how is it going? How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. And it's really lovely to be back. Nice to see you. You're looking really well. So it's all
Oh,
it's all looking good for you. What you're doing.
yes. Yes, you're looking great too. It's like end of summer, so we've actually had some sun on us. Sun on us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I'm normally kind of blue white. They've got that Scottish blue white hue, and I'm a bit more pink now, which is really nice. So yeah.
Mm.
Yes. So where would you like to begin?
Let's yeah, just for the people who are new to listening to this podcast and our conversation and who are new to you. What is Pretani Wisdom Traditions and why is it important? Why do you believe that it is an important entrance into people wanting to learn about their ancestry if they have ancestry from anywhere on the land of what we know today as Britain.
Okay, so Pretani Wisdom Traditions arose kind of as a result of my degree in Celtic studies and the learning that came with that around the Celtic label possibly being the wrong label for the people of these lands. And so when we looked into the history, you know, the earliest recorded name for the islands that we live on and the people who lived on those islands as a collective were the people were referred to as Pretani, and the islands itself, the archipelago, was referred to as Pretanica. So the larger island was Albion, and the smaller island Iwerne, which is now Ireland. So those names come to us from the 5th century BCE. So they've been in existence for a long time, and we also know that the Roman historians and those who visited spoke of the Britons and Britannia, which is a Latinization of those original terms. So we've never been referred to as Celts by the historians. We've never been referred to as Celts in our own literature. Okay, right up until the 1700s, where that word first arrives in our language, and it was used to describe the progression of language development rather than the people themselves. So it's been quite a journey for me, in the sense that I've come up against a lot of resistance. Obviously, because Celt is a term which is held very dear to people who are not of Anglo-Saxon descent. But I just wanted to kind of strip that away and just go back and see that as an encompassing term when I connect to those ancient spirits. So when I'm connecting to the ancient ancestors of this land, I'm using a name by which they may have understood themselves collectively. So that's kind of the potted story there.
Yeah, we spoke a lot about the different cultures here, the Welsh, the Cornish, Devon, even looking into the land that we now call England. People up north call themselves Northerners. There's just so many different groups of people with their own traditions, and we spoke a lot about that in the in the last podcast. And people were really fascinated with this idea
Mm-hmm.
of Brittany. We had so much positive feedback, some really like warm, heartfelt insights and realizations. People were saying that they were having, activations within their spiritual journey, a deeper understanding of who they were, because it this idea of Pratani comes with some sort of solid foundation. It's not as confusing, it's not as lost, as when looking into the Celtic world, it can sort of leave us are threads and unwoven in a sense. Whereas it seemed that people, when listening to you speaking about Brittany, it was like, yeah, the weaving together of answers that they'd sort of been seeking. And we spoke a lot about the practicals in the last podcast. This time, yeah, I'd love to talk about and ask you about the the connection that we as human beings innately upon this land have with the spirits of the natural world, and what we know of these connections in the past. And I'm not just talking about the traditions and practices, but more so the innate connection that the people of these lands, the people of Scotland, have with the natural world through a divine sense and a spiritual sense. So we can say that like Wales has a different culture to Scotland. But the spirits of the land here where I am in Wales are different spirits and entities and beings entirely in comparison to up in the Highlands in Scotland. Um, so I guess what is what's your experience with this? What's your experience with the spirits of where you're from, and how is that reflected in the history that you're looking into now in terms of Scottish history?
Mm. Yeah, so I think we have to maybe think about the context of the terrain of the landscape as well as to how these entities come into importance or into existence. So it's like I love that you've said there's a difference between the these entities, these spirits, because it's like, for example, um one of the spirits that I work with at the moment is Kayak, the old, the hag of winter, they call her, which is very much a part of Gaelic and Gaelic sort of spiritual history. And it's like, I don't know if there is an equivalent to Kayak in the Welsh spiritual heritage. I mean, are you aware of anything like that?
I'm aware that people have tried to find something, and
Yes.
that's sort of what we're all trying to do is we're trying to like comparative mythology is brilliant in some senses, but not for personal connection to the spirits of place.
There you
Um,
go. Yeah.
yeah, so not in folklore, but there is, the wind is here. It gets awful up on the mountains. We've got some, oh God, what are they called now? That we've got this one fairy at Tulworth Teg. They're a part of the Tulworth Teg family, the fairy family.
Mm-hmm.
And they wander the mountains, and they are seen as a woman, quite a freaky, scary woman, but there's not really much said. Um, People are definitely trying to find something here, though, that might
Mm-hmm.
not be here.
Yeah, but that's it was just I was using that as a way to highlight what you'd said about the differences, and it's like the kayak kind of arose as the shaper of the Highland landscape and the shaper of the mountains in the northern parts of Ireland. So, and she may actually represent perhaps the oldest creation myth in some ways that my people have. She was the entity that shaped the landscape. And you've seen the Highlands of Scotland; they're incredibly rugged, and the mountains of Ireland. So they kind of represent that harshness, because she has that harsh and that cold edge, and that sort of ideas around death and hibernation and giving way into the darkness. So, but when I think about your beautiful country, Wales, it's so much something softer, something a little bit softer in the landscape. And I don't know whether that's just because it's more westerly, but it just that you can see how these differences kind of rise through the shape of the landscape. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's definitely softer. I just spent some time in West Wales, and I went to a stone structure called Pentre Ifan. I don't know if you've heard or been, but it's like older than the pyramid, the Great
Mm,
Pyramid. I believe it's 6,000 years old, and it's just surrounded by fairy trees, so hawthorns, oaks. With the biggest hawthorns I've ever seen in my life are as you're walking up the path to get to this spot, that you have to walk through the hawthorn portal, which is you've got hawthorns up there, right? There are similarities across these lands as well as differences. And you'll probably find in Scotland just as much as Wales and Ireland, you do get these hawthorn trees around these spaces where
mm,
there are um, fairies or spirits. And
mm-hmm,
yeah, just looking out across Brecon Beacons, just looking out across the mountains here, it is rolling and soft.
mm-hmm.
And it's like the language. I feel like the languages also
Yep.
mimic the landscape because they come from the landscape. So
Yep.
I don't have a strong Welsh accent, but when you go into the valleys, it's a lot like this. And it's like it's sort of like the rolling mountains.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
fascinating. There's just one thing I wanted to just going back to what we were saying before about Pretani and things like that. It's like I was reading a book the other day about the Scotland's prehistory, and it was just talking about, and I thought you'd be interested in this, in how the Welsh people resisted the Welsh label up until the 1200s, because prior to that they insisted on calling themselves Brythoniad, which is Britons. You know, it was just a wee thing that came into my mind that I wanted to share with you because as that connection to a Britannia identity.
I've really felt yeah, felt more at home in the word Britain. I really thought the word Britain was inherently colonial until I started looking into the history of it, which was only a few years ago now. Um, but yeah, thanks for letting me know. So just to come back to, yeah, our connection to the natural world and recognizing their, yeah, the intelligence, the sentience within it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Other than the Cailleach, is there any other like, yeah, any other beings that you've looked into recently and been connecting with that are still here today? Because I think when looking at our ancestral history, for me anyway, it's important to it informs today, it informs me the way that I understand my own landscape. Um, so yeah, even though there might be like a folk tale told about something hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but you can still see it today, even though it was told hundreds of years ago, because the natural world is still the same. Um, yeah, is there
Yeah,
any other stories or
absolutely. So you were talking about the Tuath Tig, you know, your fairy race. We have the same. We have the Oshi. Um, so that's the people of peace, the silent ones. You know, the fairy as they're called now. You know, there's a whole lore of fairy mythology through Ireland and Scotland, and you know it's still very very much present in the names of the places in Scotland, especially in the Highlands. You've got a place called Strantian in Ardnamurchan, which is the place of the Sidhe, the place of the fairies. You know, the Schiehallion mountain is the fairy mountain, and just about every mound has the word Sidhe. It's spelled Sith in Scots Gaelic, you know, attached to it. Just they're just everywhere. So that memory is still extant in the landscape all over, and you know very much up until the early 20th century the fairy faith was still very very active, and if you go to certain parts of the Highlands it still is today.
yeah, same here. We've got like waterfalls. A lot of our water bodies are associated with divinity in the spirit realm.
Mm.
There's probably more than one, but there's one that I know of, Tulworth Teg. It's just called the Fair Folks, a waterfall up in North Wales.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just incredible to see it and read it on the map. And like, yeah, I go wanting to understand why it's called that. And I feel today the one of the reasons as to why we don't have these sightings and connections as much is because of the electronics that are here. It's because of like the
Yes.
pylons that are everywhere. They're still there, but they've gone like underground per se, or like inner.
Mm.
These beings aren't of earth in the same way that we are, like not made of the same earthly materials. They dwell within I believe that they traverse and travel through the water,
Yeah.
aquifers and the mycelial networks. I've got like loads of
Yeah.
ideas about this, and yeah, they're not going to want to gather around these electronic
Nope.
stations. So yeah, my connections happen, like my experiences do happen far away from the city. So
Hmm.
yeah, like would you like to talk about any experiences that you've had since we last spoke? You don't have to, because I know they can be quite personal, and often we're told not to talk about them. Like there is a lot that I would
Hmm.
love to talk about, and I feel um, yeah, I just wanted to say this on this podcast actually. Like we are like a lot of these experiences come because we sort of zip our lips because of it's
Hmm.
yeah, an alliance, but others like we're able to talk about because they want us to speak of it. So was
Hmm.
there anything that you wanted to share?
Well, yeah, quite a lot of things that you're saying. It seems like we've been on a parallel journey this last year, a really parallel journey, because I was doing some research into second sight in the Scottish Highlands, and a lot of the books I was reading, I come across this passage. This one author had said that visions and sightings of these things were much more prolific, sort of from the later medieval period onwards, and then have died off over the 20th, the advent of the 20th century. So basically, the coming of electricity. Okay, so when
Wow.
electricity arrives and we start to have these electromagnetic frequencies in the house, something is interrupted in our own ability to perceive, and it's only got worse and worse and worse. So you have like the Wi-Fi stuff, the 3, 4, 5G, all of that going on. Our houses everywhere is constantly filled with electrical information and noise, which really blocks out that ability. So just like yourself, I have to go miles away sometimes from where I live, so that I can have these animistic experiences. And just like yourself, I've come into interest with a hawthorn tree, and I have taken some time to make a relationship with that tree. And because there's two of them, they sit one in front of the other, and it's like there's like a little grove in the middle, if you like. And I'm waiting for permission to enter that sacred space, because it feels incredibly sacred. And so, it's taken me a wee while. I'm in there, and I was there only maybe 3, 4 days ago, taking an issue to discuss with whoever was listening. Um, and it was incredible. I walked in and I felt as if I was being encapsulated by these trees, and it's like I could feel this circulating energy going around the outside, like I was being protected. I could have fallen asleep there and nobody would have come anywhere near me. And there was nothing to see, you know, but everything to feel and everything to perceive in here, and just that knowing. And that's what it is. And that's obviously what you're getting to.
Yeah, it's often it's not something you see. Um, yeah, like I've seen stuff in the past and it's left me
Mm-hmm.
confused. I'm not sure whether that was actually meant for me. And then I'm on a hunt, like, was that an alien? Was that this? Was that that? What we're on about is it's a knowing when you, well, like for me, when you are in communication um
Mm-hmm.
with a higher consciousness in a sense. Like it's hard to know how to describe these things. This is why I really wish I could speak Welsh, especially Old Welsh, because there would be words to describe the specific experiences that like we've both had. The one experience, funnily enough, that I've had this summer that profoundly changed my life with, well, it wasn't even an experience, it's an area of land. It's right by these hawthorn trees. You walk through, so there's two big ones and they meet like an archway. And sort of as soon as you've gone through there, it's, you're not here anymore. Um, it feels just like how you've described. I was trying to describe
Mm.
it to my partner yesterday, like a bit like a bubble. Um,
Yes.
like yeah, a bit like a bubble, and like the pitch in your experience and perception of the space is slightly altered, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for me, it was quite warm and loving and like fuzzy. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was my experience. I was I was talking to my partner yesterday. So we went to West Wales, and I was telling him about offerings, like why I give an offering and why we offer to nature. And I was wondering if um you saw it in this way as well. So I had the realization that when I'm offering to, say, a specific tree, we've got a beautiful tree behind our house called Beech Tree, and our house is called Beech House. And there's a little bit of ancient woodland behind the house, and there's a huge beech tree. And I'm like, okay, this house is called Beech House because of this giant beech tree. The house is, over 100 years old. And I am building a relationship with it. And trees are, so for us, we are just a blip to the tree's perception, to the
Yep.
to the perception of the natural world when it comes to plants and elements. So not like spiders and things, we're actually a lot slower than them. Um, so to a tree, we're like a blip,
Hmm.
and they don't pay any attention to us. But if
Mm-mm.
we spend time with them, they notice that if we leave something for them, they'll notice that. And over time, they're like, oh, right, you are paying attention to me. Similarly to how if you see a mouse and a mouse runs up to you and then you want to like talk to it and then it just runs away really quickly, you're not going to bother. But if a mouse stops and stares at you, we're like, oh, okay, hello. And then it might come up to us. And if it leaves us some cheese, we're like, oh, okay, I'm going to pay more attention to this mouse. This is how I see trying to build a relationship with a tree, especially, is going into its sort of space time
Hmm.
to be like, I'm devoting enough time to you to be patient enough for you to actually have the time to know that I'm here, you know? Yeah, that's how I'm building the relationship to the tree in my garden anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you're just describing the animistic relationship, because you're learning to approach the tree, like you say, through its own vibration, its own concept of time and space, where obviously everything is much slower for them, much slower vibrationary rates, because they're rooted, and obviously they live a lot longer than us, so their concept of time is stretched out, it's slow. So we have to be slow in response to that, and a good animist knows that that's what happens. So you're on it, you're absolutely on it.
Yeah, it's this tree in the garden is wonderful. There are some things that I'd like in my head. I'm like, I want to share what happened, but I just can't. There was a knowing
Mm-hmm.
when what happened with that tree. It was that this doesn't leave here. It
Mm-hmm.
especially is not going to be spoken about on your social media,
Mm-hmm.
Stella. And I was like, oh, but it's a really cool experience. And the spirits were just like, I don't care. This is for me
Mm-hmm.
and you. This won't
Yep.
carry on if you share this on your social media. So, okay. Um, and it's a knowing. It's just such a deep knowing. Um, so yeah, in terms of plants, there are plants all across the world. And some plants
Yes.
you can find, the oak tree isn't just here. You've got oaks, different types of oaks around the world. I'm pretty sure they live very far and wide,
I do.
and they can survive in a lot of different climates. So, but that's just the oak tree. It's very strong, very wise. Um, they know, they know they feel safe enough because they're strong enough to choose spread out. There's a big community of oaks upon this world, but there are other plants that are a lot more particular to place. And I wanted to talk about that. And yeah, let's go in, Leah. Let's dive into. I've got 10 minutes left on this now, so we'll have a little
Okay.
chat. Yeah, we'll start the conversation and then I'll say when to stop. I'll just edit this bit out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Considering we're both talking about our connection to the plants that are around us, such as the hawthorn tree, um, let's talk about not why we don't see plants that are native to Britain being as popular in terms of ceremony, spiritual events, in comparison to plants that are from around the world, and why and how we can start actually caring for and respecting the plants here, and the plants that we're sort of taking from other parts of the world.
Okay, so my feeling on that is that we're sort of being sold ideas of superiority, and not in a I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It's like because we have had this kind of severing of our connection to our own spirits and our own plant lore over the years, with the coming of Christianity, and then later on this kind of materialistic worldview, these sort of things, we've sort of lost our connection, our deep connection. And so lots of us are looking for a way to reconnect with the divine, to reconnect with the earth. And we're looking to alternative cultures to make that happen. These cultures that, have unbroken or apparently unbroken lineages. And they also have their medicine plants. And yes, those medicine plants are absolutely fantastic at helping us to reconnect with our own animistic nature. But it doesn't mean that they're better than our plants. It doesn't mean that they're stronger or somehow superior to our plants. It's just that we've forgotten how to work with our native plant beings, and it's as simple as that.
Why do you feel that we've forgotten what's happened along the way? It's a big question, but what are some of the main reasons?
Well, I think, as the advent of the Industrial Revolution and the building of machinery, and the coming of electricity, and the coming of new medical sciences, that over time, the sort of the folkloric herbalist approach has become seen as primitive, not helpful. It's primitive, reductionist. So we don't need to bother with that anymore, because now we have these medicines that we can synthesize, and they can help us instantly. We get an instant relief. Whereas where you're working with plants and herbalism, sometimes it can take weeks, maybe months, before you get an improvement in your condition, because the plant is dealing with you on a holistic level, whereas modern medicines are instant, because they target that one specific problem, if that makes sense. So it's like the development of modern life that's kind of pushed our old beliefs to one side. But it's interesting how those people who are interested in spirituality and shamanism, things like that, are coming back to plant medicine, but they're looking towards other cultures that they perceive to have more knowledge.
Yeah, for me, I look towards other cultures first but it's bizarre because my first introduction into the plant medicine realm in a profound way was through the psilocybin mushroom here. It was literally
Mm-hmm.
from here. And then
Mm-hmm.
but I went looking for people to guide me and help me specifically with that. And I couldn't find anything, but I could find a lot from other cultures. And I thought, oh, well, if I can't find anything here, maybe they'll understand somewhat the realm that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, it comes down to when you know that, like like cacao, for example, it's a beautiful heart opening medicine, and I think it's really
Yeah.
important for us to connect with it in a sacred way. If we're eating chocolate from the shop, like it's important for us to recognize what this actually is and make amends with the spirit of this plant. But in terms of ceremony, I feel that people should not solely stick to working with cacao and start, say, working with the hawthorn or bramble, or
Mm-hmm.
just building new relationships and figuring out what works for us. But the reason that we do see it popular, it is so popular, is because they're still popular where they're from. And
Hmm.
it's just about the like, some people might have built an entire business, say from cacao ceremony, and then it would be a complete turn to start working with our native plants. So it's not about abandoning that. Um, it's about bringing in, I feel, what's here because they've been neglected. The plants here and the
Hmm.
trees here have been neglected. It's not just about it, yeah, it's not just about respecting the plants that we're colonizing. It's about respecting the plants that are here. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like I have recently made this because I was working with other cultures for a while, other cultural medicines, should I say, and I have been told quite categorically by my own spirits to stop doing that.
Mm.
Stop it now. It served its purpose in the sense that it brought me into connection, yeah, into an animistic connection with the land and all of the spirits that dwell on there. But
Mhm.
now it's time. I've been instructed it's time for me to leave it behind and focus on our land. And that's where I'm at the moment.
Any particular plants that you're working with at the moment from here?
Yeah, so I'm working with some plants that are not what you would necessarily immediately think about in terms of medicine. Okay, so the one is the blackthorn. So the blackthorn is obviously, is in relationship with hawthorn, but in a different way. And the blackthorn is very much connected to the spirit of the kayak. So I'm working with that as a protective medicine. But I'm also working with the plant essence, the flower essence that I made of probably the most poisonous plant in the UK, which is the hemlock water dropwort. And she's been with me, I would say, for the last 7 years. She sort of first turned up as I was diagnosed with cancer, and I've been working with that as a spiritual vibration, as a spiritual connection only, up until this year when I made a flower essence from it. And that was it's been so powerful in basically stripping out toxicity, because obviously you have to be very careful. The plant is incredibly toxic, it's deadly actually. So I've only used a very, very tiny amount of the plant material, and I absolutely forbid anybody watching to have anything to do with it. Right. Um, and so she's a plant that has very, very little folkloric connection, apart from being for treatment of certain types of cancers in Scotland, believe it or not. So, but yeah, the medicine of that plant has been incredible, and it's about learning the difference between poison and medicine.
Yeah, so the hemlock water dropwort, I don't advise anyone, like Sam just said, to go out and start working with it. But there are just so many plants here. And what really intrigues me is the mixing of plants, potions,
Mm-hmm.
that just get lost to time. The sort of,
Yep.
yeah, the medicines that just get lost to time.
Mm-hmm.
Because in order to know that something works well, you do have to have a lot of deaths and mistakes beforehand. And, in the world of today, we just don't work with the plants like that.
I
Um,
know.
but that just really, intrigues me to think about the sort of potions that our ancestors were working with. And you spoke about the blackthorn. Now, the blackthorn, in terms of like folklore and tradition, is something that you see across all of Britain and even in Ireland, I believe, is
Mm-hmm.
representative of the darker days, the winter, the darkness. Even here in Wales, we have the fight between the blackthorn and the hawthorn. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so these plants, they transcend just using them medicinally. They become a part of our whole like identity in terms of the seasonal celebrations, like which is just so incredible, which is something that we've definitely lost. We still have the mistletoe at Christmas, we still have the tree that we bring inside at Christmas. But these seasonal celebrations are we still have seasonal celebrations, but the focus of them isn't like the plant and the wisdom of the plant and the community and the connection. The focus of these seasonal celebrations is like the capitalism. So I just wanted to say for people listening, like we still have these celebrations to connect to, and we can just just deepen our divine interactions to the plants that we're working with, the pumpkin, the mistletoe, whatever it might be, the apple, you
Mhm.
know. Um, yeah, so what was the because we had a few topics that we wanted to talk about. What was there anything else you wanted to say on the plant spirit connection?
Right. So yeah, I was looking through uh, some of my research, and I came up with something that might be of interest to you and your Welsh listeners. Have you heard of the physicians of Myddfai?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, and the whole sort of story around that. And so, what I wanted to say is that the sort of the pre-Christian times are, pretty much lost to us, really. Essentially, that it's a darkness that we can't really ever truly access. And we can only get clues through sort of like wee bits of archaeology and some of the stories of the classical authors. But where we need to be looking, I think, is in the folklore. So even a little bit later than perhaps the early medieval writings, but actually looking at the extant folklore, because that's where you're going to find the magic and the medicine of our plants and all of the plant lore that's connected. And the works of the physicians of Myddfai is interesting because it contains that full plant lore of Wales, but also not just from a medical perspective, but from a spiritual perspective as well. So, any of your listeners are interested in looking into that, that is a really, really good place to start. Very good place to start. And so, for people like me in Scotland, there's a wonderful book by Alexander Carmichael, and it's called Carmina Gadelica, and it contains all the folklore of the Highlands and Islands. And another really good place to look, and I might get lynched for saying this, but it's important, is looking at Anglo-Saxon leechcraft, because the Anglo-Saxons, all right, they were people who came and settled, but they came and settled in this land and started to interact with our local plants. So this book, Anglo-Saxon, is back to front. I know Leechcraft by Stephen Pollington contains the earliest recorded plant lore that we have for the plants of the British Isles. So it's well worth a look, even if it is Anglo-Saxon.
Oh, thank you for those recommendations. Yeah, with the physicians of Medford, I actually, yeah, I created a little video on it on my Instagram, which I'm just finding now because I will save that and pop that in a description. Yeah,
Mm.
so yeah, the herbalists of Medford were, yeah, they were physicians and they wrote the Red Book of Hergest, which has got loads and loads of herbal remedies, folklore, and you can today go to the village. Have you been?
No, not yet. I'm going to go though.
Oh, go. It's so wonderful. Yeah, you can go to the
Yeah.
village. It's tiny and they've got like one shop, I don't even think they have a pub, but they've got a cafe, and in that cafe you've just got these like information boards of the physicians, and you can collect a little leaflet that takes you on a guided herb tour of the area, like depending on the season. So if you go, like, think about the season that you're going to go to, but you can walk around the whole village on a tour and collect herbs along the
Oh,
way and
wow.
plants. Yeah, yeah. When I went, I think I might have been pregnant, so I don't think I did the walk. But I really want to go back there. Yeah, there is a lot of information regarding plant law, and I feel for the audience and just we just need to start working with these plants, dieting with these plants if we really want to get a feel for them as individuals. So I just wanted to touch on, you know, what dieting is. And I
Hmm.
think that's actually quite an important practice um, that we can bring up now. Were you going to say something before, though, that came to mind?
I can't, I don't think so. No, 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 no. I was going to ask if you'd actually been to Llyn Van Fach, you know, the lake that's part of the legend of the physicians.
Um, no, we haven't stayed. No, I haven't spent a lot of time around there. No. Have
Yeah,
you?
it might be worth you visiting because obviously there was a water spirit that conferred the wasn't it that conferred the
Yeah,
gift of
yeah,
the healing onto. Yeah, I just think that'd be
yeah.
really nice for you.
The Lady of the
But
Lake. Yeah,
yeah.
there's so much that I've got to explore. Um, I've We'll go on to the dieting in a moment, but because I'm from Cardiff, South Wales, it's like there's not much here because it's really industrialized, but I've really been trying
Mm,
to find a lot here. I'm really being pulled to go up north. And I just went to West Wales, but in terms of like deciding to go to places, I'm trying to unearth that which is left here. And I have been for like the last year and a half. So people are like, have you been here? Have you been here? And
mhm.
on my days off, you know, away from my toddler, I'm going to trying to find the local spots. But yeah, so dieting. What is dieting with a plant, and how is this something that isn't particular to sort of one culture or spiritual native tradition? It's something that you can find, you can diet, doesn't matter where you're from. But yeah, what is dieting?
Oh, basically, I guess it's what it says on the tin. It's like working with a specific plant for a specific length of time. So I've recently been dieting with mugwort. So essentially, I'm working with the spirit of the plant for a lunar month. So I would start that on a new moon and connect with the spirit of the plant through a visionary journey or whatever, and sort of speak to it and say, right, I'm going to be consuming you, you know, over the next month. So for me, it's also about a reduction in food, actual ordinary food, and an increase in the amount of this plant that I consume. And every time I consume, it's in connection. It's a mindful or visionary and spiritual connection with the plant, looking at how it reacts with me, what happens, what kind of dreams I have, what kinds of insights I get, and that I do for an entire month. Is that like what same for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I haven't done much of it to be honest. I've been breastfeeding for almost 2 years now. Prior to that, I was pregnant for
Right.
almost a blooming year. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, before that, I wasn't really, yeah, I just wasn't in the space for it. But I'm really excited now to start, yeah, working with mugwort again. So I'd not dieted with mugwort, but when my most profound plant ingestion experience aside from the psilocybin has been with the mugwort, and I
Mm-hmm.
really treated her with a real reverence just because of when I'd heard herbalists speaking about her, they were like, you know, you have like pick her with intention, meet
Mm-hmm.
her, she's a very powerful spirit. And as I was learning about her, I just got that sense, and I was like, I'm not going to meet her unless I truly respect her. And
Mm-hmm.
I went and harvested her from the park by my nan's house, and then I did this whole like I kept her on my altar in these jars, and I did a tea ceremony with her, and oh my goodness, I was for me the experience was like um so I was in ceremony on my own in my room. For me, the experience was like being in silence and nothingness, in pure awareness. It's like I couldn't even think. It was like
Mm.
I was a light in a big black room that was Mugwort's room, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
It was
Oh my
like,
God, yeah.
yeah. And it's like Mugwort was the whole space that I was in, and I couldn't even think. I was just in it, and it was so beautiful. So I didn't. I've got some now again to work with her again, because I wasn't working with her while I was pregnant or breastfeeding. But I find it weird when people perhaps offer me to smoke mugwort or drink mugwort. It's like it's not what I have, and it's not been the same. But I always feel quite resistant to it because of how powerful
Mhm.
she is. But I haven't dieted with her. I wonder, yeah, for a month that would be a very, yeah, wonderful experience.
It is, and it's just so fascinating to hear what you said, because that is exactly the same kind of experience that I have when I diet with these plants. It's like the best way I can describe it is as if I'm inside the mind of the plant.
Yes.
That I'm inside the plant itself, and it's like I experience what it feels like to exist as that being. And what it feels like is being in a constant state of meditation. It's like the plants are just constantly meditating. I can't, that's the best way I have to describe it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Perhaps that's the case for other plants as well, but I've only worked with mugwort and yeah, mugwort in that sense. And
Mm,
yeah, wow. Wow, I'm really excited to yeah, to drink her again. One thing that's really important is to work with these plants in ceremony as well. Like
yes.
it's
Yeah.
not just a case of just drinking them. And when I say ceremony, it's thought about for a while before. It's a whole thing. It's a
Mm-hmm.
whole thing. It's a ritual that you choose to do yourself. There is no layout. It's not, I don't feel that me and Sam could tell you a step by step of how to do it. But when you're called to work with a plant, just like plan it. It's a holiday that you're going on with this plant. It's like a retreat. It's not just sitting there consuming it. And I feel like this is where I've spoken to people and they've said, "Oh, mugwort didn't make me feel anything." And it's the way that you work with it, really. It really
Mm-hmm.
is. Yeah, it's almost like the spirit of the plant leaves the room if you're not respecting them. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
bye, see ya.
Well, I was taught that there's two ways of approaching it. You either approach it as a medicine, as a spirit, in which case you'll get that feedback, or you just approach it as a cup of tea, and then you won't get anything. It's just it may help you sort of on a physical level, because I know that the mugwort's very useful for menstrual issues and things like that. So you may get that response from the plant, but it's
Mm,
only when you enter into it in a ritual capacity that you're going to get that level of communication. So yeah.
mm. Yes, yes. And talking about like rituals, we have yeah, so I've got something really exciting to share with everybody. So this podcast is going to be released on the day of the launch of The Mystic Cave. And The Mystic Cave is a collection of online artists and creators who work within the ancestral realms of the lands of Britain and the Celtic lands. But the focus of this, me bringing these artists together, is ancestral connection to ourselves and the earth and decolonization through honoring lineage, elements, plants, and especially the magical, mystical realm of journeying. So, what I've got, and Sam is a part of this as well, is a collection of digital products that include courses, workshops, meditation journeys, ebooks, and they surround the topics that I just shared with you guys. And I would love for Sam to share what your contribution is to this Mystic Cave bundle that you are all right now able to access in the link in the description of this video. Um, and the deal is amazing in terms of the price for me bringing all of these people together. So, Sam, what is it that you are contributing to the Mystic Cave?
No, it's exciting. Can't wait. So I'm contributing a course called Pretani, a brief history of the ancient Britons. So basically, it's a history course, if you like, basically going through what we know about Pretani people, their culture, and I hope it won't be dry and boring. I've done my very best for it not to be dry and boring, but right at the end of it, we also I facilitate a visionary journey into an Iron Age Brittany settlement. So that's it. That's it.
Yay, I'm really excited. So your course is going to be the first on the list, and I've actually organized them in a way that makes sense. So we've
Mm-hmm.
got your course and then a journey into the Pretani settlement, which is the history, more of like a just foundational history of what who these people were, what their lives were like. And then after that, we've got Olivia, aka the Mystery Weaver, who's got more of a so her journey is an ancestral reclamation into the bones. And a releasing, like a deep releasing. And her work is very powerful. And then we've got other people in this, other artists, other creators who you guys are going to absolutely love. I'm sure you guys will recognize some of them. And obviously, my own course is in there as well, called Arwen Awakens, which is an exploration into the Welsh bardic practice. And it's got some, so the bard practice is, and the what we have left of like animism, like in Wales, especially in the Britons, is because of the poetry written by the bards in the medieval period. They really did carry through the wisdom of the past. If it wasn't for them, we'd have no, we really wouldn't have much at all. We've got the folklore, as Sam said, but yeah, if you're interested in what I'm saying, pop into the description below and yeah, get yourself the Mystic Cave bundle. You can only get it for 2 weeks and then it's going to be gone. All of our individual products are going to be available separately for their individual prices. But right now, you can get them all together so that you can go into the autumn. We're just coming out of the summer fully now, out of the autumn, well into the winter with courses and workshops and books and deep spiritual journeys that you can go on together. We're all doing this together. What is also really exciting is the first people to buy it in the first week. So from now, for the next 7 days, you can join a live ritual, a live ceremony, a Samhain ceremony, a ceremony of honoring our ancestors, which I believe is happening on the 6th of November. Sam might be there. Some of the creators might be there. Yeah, and it's going to be amazing. And just thank you all for listening. I love you all. It's lovely to come full circle back around to interviewing Sam. And yeah, so excited for this Pretani course, which is going to
Thank
make us
you.
all even more excited for your book. Ah, yeah, how is that going? Just before we
Yeah,
pop off,
that's
just for your little promo for the book that's coming.
yeah. The book is very very close now. I'm on the final edits, so we're nearly there. We're nearly there. So yeah,
Ah.
well, maybe a couple of more months because I've got other projects on and going on concurrently as well. So lots to do, but we'll get there.
Okay, so it does look like 2025.
Yeah, I
Ah,
would say probably.
amazing. Oh, cool. Wow. Ah, exciting times, guys. Yeah, thanks, Sam. Speak again.
You're welcome. Take care.
Bye.